The Avengers vs. the Peter Factor by midnightwolf2192. Chapter 6. Clint. Before Clint met Peter, Cooper, Lila and Nate met Peter. It hadn't even been intentional. Clint had been spending the day with his kids while Laura and Nat had a girls' day. Clint decided to take the kids to the American Museum of Natural History for the morning before taking them into Central Park for the afternoon. The group of four were exploring the museum and Nate had seen something that caught his eye. The 3-year-old had noticed a sign for the planetarium and he knew that he wanted to see the stars, so he simply followed the signs. When he arrived, he stared in awe at all the things around him. Everything was just so pretty. He turned to tell Toop all about it, but then he remembered he had left everyone else behind. Nate then realized just how alone he was and started crying. "Hey, buddy!" A voice came from above and Nate looked up. A boy, maybe about Toop's age, was kneeling in front of him. He had a gentle smile on his face and he looked at the boy. "Why are you so upset?" "What's Dada and Buddha and Sissy?" Nate sobbed out and the boy frowned. The teen put a hand on Nate's shoulder and Nate just threw himself at the teen. The boy wrapped his arms around the kid and picked him up, shushing him as he went. "Help me find him?" "Of course, little man," the boy said. "What's your name?" "Nate. What's yours?" Nate asked, and the boy smiled. "Well, Nate, it's lovely to meet you. My name is Peter. Now, what are your family's names?" "Tupa and Waiwa and Daddy," Nate said, and the boy smiled. Now that Nate was high up, he felt slightly safer. Peter was resting him on his hip, and even wiping Nate's tears and snotty nose on his jacket sleeve. "Okay, do you remember where they are?" Peter asked, the names not meaning anything to Peter. He could assume that Tupa meant Cooper, but he had no idea what Waiwa might be, and Dada was a typical response for a kid when asked their parents' name. But maybe Nate could remember where they had been before. "Near the dinos," Nate said, and Peter nodded. He turned and walked out of the planetarium and started walking down the stairs. "What do you do here?" "Oh, I was working on an assignment for school," Peter replied. Nate had stopped crying now and was looking at Peter excitedly. "We had to do some research on meteorites and what makes them." "Wow, you smart," Nate said, and the boy blushed. He was about to say something when a young girl's voice could be heard calling Nate's name. "Sissy!" Peter turned a corner and found a girl of about 12 calling out for the young boy. She noticed Peter holding Nate and rushed towards him. "Coop!" she called over her shoulder, and Peter watched as a boy of about 14 turned, sighed in relief, and raced over to them. "Nate, where did you go? Dad's worried." "See stars," Nate said softly, burying his head in Peter's neck. "It's all okay, guys. He was just looking at the stars," Peter explained. He playfully jiggled Nate, who giggled. "We should find your dad, though. He's probably worried sick." "Who are you?" Coop demanded, protectiveness for his younger siblings rising in him. "Sorry, my name's Peter. I was just helping Nate, but you can have him back if you want," Peter replied. He made to give Nate to Cooper, but before the other team could take the boy, Nate gripped onto Peter's jacket. "No, Doop, wanna stay with Peter," Nate protested loudly, and Cooper sighed. "Fine, come on. Dad will start tearing what little air he has left out," Cooper teased, and the 3 Barton kids giggled, but Peter just snorted softly. "At least this time it wasn't somewhere open," Cooper said as they walked, and Peter looked at him in confusion. "When we were younger, Mum and Dad took Lila and I to the water park on one of the hottest days of the year. It took Dad 15 minutes to realise Lila wasn't sitting on the towel with him. Mum was in the water with me, so Dad only had 1 kid to watch. It took him another 10 to find her, and when he did, he found that she had made friends with some family and had joined them for lunch. Mum was furious." Cooper and Lila regaled Peter with tales of their father when they moved throughout the museum before they arrived back on the ground floor. A man was standing by the front desk looking frantic, and Peter realised it had to be the kid's dad. "Dad!" Cooper called, and the man turned. Peter barely held in a gasp when he realised the man standing before him was Clint Hawkeye Barton, Avenger and spy. The man drifted over the two older kids before zoning in on Nate, held firmly in Peter's arms. "Jeez, Nate," Clint said. He thanked the museum staff before racing over to his kids. Nate this time went willingly into his father's arms, and Peter smiled. "Don't wander off like that. Your mum and your auntie Nat would have had my head if I lost you." "Dada, this is my new friend," Nate said as he wiggled out of Clint's grasp. When he was free, he moved back over to Peter and took his hand. "Peter, this is my Dada. Dada, this Peter." "Hi, Mr. Barton," Peter said as he held out his free hand for him to shake. Clint took it and smiled gratefully. "I'm Peter." "Clint, thank you so much for finding him," Clint replied. "I turned my back for 1 second and then he was gone." "I'm told children do that," Peter said with a smirk, and Clint laughed. Nate tugged Peter's sleeve and indicated for Peter to lift him up again. Peter did so without skipping a beat. But I can't blame him. I love space and stars too. I so often get caught up in that. "Stars are pretty," Nate murmured, and both Clint and Peter smiled. "That they are, bud, but next time you should ask your dad to take you. You don't want to get lost again, do you?" Peter said, and Nate shook his head firmly. "We told Peter this wasn't your first time losing a kid," Cooper teased, and Clint groaned. "Now the kid's gonna think I'm a bad father," Clint whined, and Peter shook his head quickly. "No way, Mr. Barton, sir," Peter said, and Clint raised an eyebrow. "Trust me, I've seen bad fathers, and you're far from it." "Well, thanks, kid." Clint felt oddly choked up. Lila slid under his arm and he squeezed her shoulder gently. "We should let Peter get back to what he was doing. Then we have the rest of the museum to see." "No!" Clint turned as Nate yelled, clinging on to Peter again. "Peter, stay with us!" "Nate, buddy, Peter probably has things to do." Clint tried to reason with the 3-year-old, but he could sense the brewing tantrum, and apparently Peter could too, because he shushed the boy gently. "If it's all right with your family, I can stay with a little bit," Peter said, and Nate looked up at him. "But I have to be home to spend some time with my aunt before she goes to work, okay?" Nate nodded, with a large smile on his face. Clint just sighed and rolled his eyes. "Only my kid. Well, come on, children. Dinosaurs and sharks await," Clint said, and the 3 Barton kids, along with their new friend, headed off towards one of the exhibits.